In the previous life, my daughter Zoe sent a photo of my husband Julian closely hugging my best friend Serena. Her voice was filled with sobs, urging me to divorce him immediately, letting him leave with nothing. I was touched by my daughter's support and gathered evidence to take Julian to court. However, on the day of the hearing, Julian presented evidence claiming that I was the one who had an affair. The one who should leave empty-handed is you. Julian's smile in the courtroom was enigmatic. I was completely bewildered. The judge asked my daughter who she would live with afterward. She remained silent, simply showing the large bruises on her arms, accusing her parents of domestic violence over the years. Faced with my daughter's accusations, Julian and I were both dumbfounded. Before the court could render a verdict, Julian was hit and killed in front of the courthouse. I was also knocked unconscious at my doorstep, stuffed into a sack, and drowned at sea. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my daughter discovered her father's infidelity. This time, I was determined to uncover the truth. "Mom, say something," Zoe urged, crying on the other end of the call. I looked at the photo of Julian and Serena being affectionate, and sneered quietly. At that moment, I was extraordinarily calm. I understand now. My calmness made Zoe uneasy and confused. "Mom, are you okay? Dad is cheating." Zoe stopped pretending and put away her sobs. "We'll talk when I get home." I hung up the phone. That evening, Julian and Serena appeared together, with Serena clutching her slightly rounded belly, claiming to be pregnant. Julian looked remorseful and begged me to endure for the sake of his reputation and the unborn child, suggesting we divorce and he would compensate me. A familiar scenario, a familiar flavor. Instead of becoming hysterical, I smiled and proposed that for the child's sake, we should go to the top private hospital where my friend works for a comprehensive checkup the next day. In the VIP examination room of the private hospital, I purposely called my mother-in-law to come. As soon as she entered, she glared at me full of disdain. "You still have the nerve to call me? You can't even keep an eye on your husband and blame others." Serena sat on the examination table, gently rubbing her stomach with a vulnerable expression. Zoe immediately rushed over to carefully support her. "Aunt Serena, take it easy, the little baby in your belly is important." My mother-in-law's eyes brightened instantly, excitedly holding Serena's hand. "Really pregnant? I'm going to have a grandchild." I quietly sat in the corner, arms crossed, watching the drama unfold. The examination lasted an hour. Julian paced anxiously outside while the two women held hands, dreaming of the future. Finally, the doctor came out with the report. "The test results are in. Miss Serena is not pregnant. She is experiencing pseudo-pregnancy symptoms caused by severe gastrointestinal dysfunction." My mother-in-law's smile froze on her face, her complexion visibly turning ashen. "What? Not pregnant?" Julian's face darkened, glaring viciously at Serena. "What the hell is going on?" Serena panicked, tears streaming down her face. "I really thought I was pregnant. My period was almost 2 months late. I had pregnancy symptoms." "Pregnancy symptoms? The doctor said you have a stomach issue." Julian's voice rose several octaves. I timely took out a document from my bag and handed it to Julian. "By the way, this is the information the company's lawyer just sent me. During the time Serena claimed to be pregnant, the company spent a lot of money on her. $3 million for travel PR expenses to Hong Kong. Mr. Julian, could you submit that? Or should I call the police and report that someone is trying to hide joint property?" Julian took the document, growing increasingly grim as he read it. "What the hell is going on?" Julian threw the document at Serena's face. My mother-in-law leaned over to take a look, and after reading it she exploded. "You sly little fox, how dare you deceive me?" I smiled meaningfully. "Oh, so you know?" My mother-in-law's complexion changed rapidly from purple to red to black. What a pity not to perform Sichuan opera. Serena's face went pale instantly, panic-stricken, waving her hands. "No, you have to let me explain." "Explain what? The evidence is right here." My mother-in-law pointed angrily at her nose. At that moment, Zoe suddenly released Serena's hand, backing away in shock. "Aunt Serena, how could you do this? You deceived my dad and me." She turned and threw herself into my embrace, tears flowing like pearls strung on a broken thread. Mom, I'm sorry, I was fooled. I thought she really was pregnant and even spoke up for her. She's just a big liar. Serena was thoroughly flustered, trying to explain something, but Julian no longer wanted to listen. Get out. Get out this instant. Julian's voice echoed down the hallway. Serena ran out crying, while my mother-in-law chased after her shouting, "Liar! Shameless liar!" I held my daughter, gently patting her back. It's okay, Mom knows you are innocent. Zoe cried even harder in my arms. Mom, I will never believe Aunt Serena again. She's too evil. Julian stood nearby, his expression dark and terrifying. His reputation was completely ruined, having no child and being played for a fool by a woman. I looked at his disheveled appearance, but inside, I felt as calm as still waters. This scene was just the beginning. After Serena's desperate escape, Julian's face was terrifyingly dark. He stood in the hospital room, his fists clenched tightly, his nails digging deeply into his palms. That damn woman, he gritted his teeth. She's made me lose face in the hospital. I looked at his angry expression, but my heart was calm. This man was still so adept at shifting blame onto others. Zoe was crying in my arms, her face stained with tears. Mom, I really didn't know Aunt Serena would lie. I thought she was really pregnant, so It's okay, Mom doesn't blame you. I gently stroked my daughter's hair, my voice soft as a spring breeze. After returning home, everything returned to calm. Julian locked himself in his study, busy with who knows what. Zoe obediently sat in the living room doing her homework, glancing up at me from time to time, her eyes filled with guilt. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. The delivery person handed me a package with no sender information. I opened it to find an old school badge lying quietly inside. The badge was made of pure gold, inscribed with the words St. Anna Private School. This is the city's top aristocratic school, with an annual tuition of $300,000. But I had never seen this badge before. Zoe had attended a public school since she was little. Although our family was not poor, we were not extravagant enough to send her to an elite school. Where did this badge come from? I put the badge away in a drawer, my confusion deepening. The next day, I began to pay attention to my daughter's actions. When she came home from school, she would always rush straight into her room, closing the door to mess with something inside. I peered through the crack in the door and saw her clicking away at the computer screen, occasionally lifting her phone to take photos. At dinner, I casually asked, Zoe, what have you been busy with lately? You always seem so mysterious. Nothing, just organizing some things I don't need. She replied, her head down, not daring to meet my eyes. Unneeded things. I remembered the limited edition Chanel bag I had given her some time ago. She hadn't carried it for a long time. While she was at school, I secretly entered her room. The room was tidy, but several spots in the wardrobe were empty. The designer bags, jewelry, and watches I had given her were all gone. I opened her computer, and the browsing history showed she had been frequently logging into second-hand luxury goods trading websites. She was selling the things I had given her. Why would a 16-year-old child want to secretly sell these things? I checked her bank account and found several recent large transfer records, each over $50,000. And the receiving account was a stranger's. My heart started to race. What on earth was my daughter doing? To uncover the truth, I decided to set a trap. I told Julian and Zoe that my company had arranged for me to go on a business trip for a week. They didn't suspect anything, and even expressed concern. Be careful on the road, Mom. Remember to call us every day. Zoe hugged me, her eyes full of reluctance. Okay, you need to listen to your dad at home. I gently patted her back. In fact, I wasn't on a business trip. I checked into a hotel in the city. While they were out, I secretly returned and installed miniature recording devices in the living room and Zoe's room. On the third day, I deliberately called home. Zoe, Mom misses you. By the way, do you know what Mom has been preparing lately? What? Her voice sounded relaxed. I'm preparing a property trust document. When Mom gets old, all the property will be transferred to you alone. I made my tone very casual. Forget your dad. I've already given up on him. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Mom, don't think that way. Dad. It's fine, Mom thinks very clearly. You are Mom's only treasure. After hanging up, I waited in the hotel. At 10 that night, the recording device picked up sound. Aunt Serena, my mom is going to give all her property to me. My daughter's voice trembled with excitement. Serena's voice followed. Really? That's great. Your mom's properties are worth at least 80 million. Yes, as long as my mom and dad get divorced, all that money will be mine. Zoe, you are really smart. If you hadn't contacted me to help act out this play, how could your mom have made up her mind to divorce? My hand holding the recording pen began to tremble. Aunt Serena, you acted so well. Especially the fake pregnancy part. My mom completely fell for it. My daughter's laughter was crisp and melodious, just like when she usually acted spoiled. Of course, I'm a professional. But that 500,000 you gave me is really too little. If it weren't for your sincerity. Don't worry, once I get all the property, I'll give you 2 million. Then it's settled. By the way, how about your dad? Does he know your plan? He knows nothing. I deliberately took those photos and sent them to my mom to thoroughly ruin their marriage. Men are always looking for women outside. I'm just giving them an opportunity. The recording cut off abruptly. I sat on the hotel bed, feeling cold all over. It turned out that all of this was planned by my daughter. She had incited Serena to fake a pregnancy, deliberately took those intimate photos, and even her tears and guilt in the hospital were all an act. Her only goal? To make me and Julian divorce so she could inherit all my property. The daughter I had raised for 16 years had become my greatest enemy. I gripped the recording pen, my fingers turning white from the pressure. This child I had pampered since she was little, this person I thought loved me the most, had actually been plotting against me from the very beginning. The next day, I returned home. As soon as Zoe saw me, she rushed over. Mom, you're back. I've missed you so much. I looked at her innocent smile, but my heart was as cold as ice. Mom missed you too. I replied mechanically, my voice sounding no different than usual. But in a place where she couldn't see, my gaze had changed. I finally understood that, in this family, my real enemy was not Julian, nor was it Serena. It was this daughter who had always slept beside me, calling me Mom. I did not immediately expose my daughter's lie. Stay calm. I must stay calm. The school badge was still lying quietly in my drawer, waiting for the moment of truth to be revealed. I handed it over to my private lawyer. Investigate my background. The lawyer took the badge and nodded. I needed more information. I deliberately mentioned the investment plan during dinner. I am planning to add investments to renovate the old mansion left by my parents. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Julian's hand freeze. His movement holding the soup bowl clearly paused. A hint of panic flashed in his eyes. Although it was just a moment, I caught it. What is this man afraid of? Mom, you never mentioned anything about my grandparents to me, my daughter asked innocently. Yeah, your parents passed away early and we never met them, Julian replied, his tone unnaturally casual. Too casual. I forced a smile. Yeah, they left too early. But suspicions had already begun to rise in my mind. Everyone in this family is lying. The lawyer's investigation results came in quickly. Your foster parents were just regular assistants in your biological parents' company. The voice on the phone made my blood run cold. Is there more? What's crucial is that there is a familiar name in the witness list of your biological parents' accident. My breathing became rapid. Mr. Davis. The phone slipped from my hand and fell heavily to the ground. Mr. Davis. In the accident 20 years ago? My biological parents? All the clues started to piece together madly in my mind. If Serena's father is a witness, then her getting close to Julian, getting close to me, is definitely not a coincidence. This is a net woven meticulously over 20 years. And I am the prey in this net. I picked up my phone again, fingers trembling as I dialed the lawyer's number. Continue the investigation. Investigate Serena's background. Investigate her father's testimonies from back then. Investigate all the details of my parents' accident. Understood. I sat in the office, the bustling city outside, but my world had completely stood still at this moment. My daughter's betrayal had already shattered me. And now I realized that this might just be the tip of the iceberg. If Serena's appearance was not a coincidence, then her relationship with Julian is definitely not simple either. If there are doubts about my parents' deaths, then my entire life these years has been built on lies. I began to recall the details of these years. How did Julian come to know me? Was our meeting really a coincidence? Why was he so enthusiastic about an orphan like me? After we got married, why did he always encourage me to invest in real estate, making my wealth grow more and more? What if all this was planned? What if I was their target from the beginning? The phone rang. The investigation results are out. Serena's real name is not Serena, she is named Serena. There are many doubts in her father's testimonies from back then, and the lawyer's voice became solemn. And what? At the scene of your parents' accident, in addition to Serena's father, there was another witness. My heart was about to jump out of my chest. Ooh, Julian's father. The voice on the phone seemed to come from another world, distant. Was Julian's father also at the scene? Is this still a coincidence? I leaned back in the chair, my mind blank. Everyone in this family is acting. My daughter acts as the victim for my fortune. My husband acts affectionate, for reasons I still do not know. The lover acts as the third party, maybe to fit into some greater plan. And I, like a fool, have been manipulated by them on this stage for 16 years. I laughed. Tears came out as I laughed. So since you all are acting, I will show you my performance as well. Now it's my turn to fight back. I arranged to meet Serena at the cafe. When she appeared, her face was pale and her hands were trembling. What did you want to tell me? She asked cautiously as she sat down, her voice tinged with tension. I didn't say anything. I simply took a small box out of my bag and gently placed it in the center of the table. I opened the box. Inside lay a delicate brooch, adorned with sapphires and edged with intricate floral patterns. Serena's expression changed in an instant. Her pupils constricted sharply, her lips began to tremble, and she froze as if struck by lightning. This is. She reached for it, then pulled her hand back. Do you recognize it? I asked calmly. Tears flooded Serena's eyes without warning. She covered her face, her shoulders shaking violently. Aunt. My aunt's brooch. She choked. My heart skipped a beat. What aunt? Serena lowered her hands, her face streamed with tears. My dad said this was my aunt's favorite brooch. She said she wanted to keep it for her daughter as a dowry. The air froze. I felt blood rushing backward. What is your aunt's name? My voice trembled. Linda. Linda. My world collapsed at that moment. Linda, that was my mother's name. The name my adoptive parents told me. So you are? I am your cousin. Serena cried harder. For all these years, my dad has lived in fear. He said he was sorry to my aunt, sorry to you. He took money he shouldn't have taken. My head buzzed with confusion. Serena is my cousin. Then what about her relationship with Julian? Tell me the truth. My voice was low like a threat. Serena wiped her tears, her voice choked. This time, it wasn't my choice. It was your husband. My heart stopped beating. Julian found me and said that as long as I could drive you to the brink of a breakdown, and you would offer to divorce, he would give our family a sum of money. He called it hush money. What hush money? Hush money about the car accident back then. Serena's voice grew smaller. He said sooner or later you would find out the truth, and it was better to take the initiative rather than be passive. If you went crazy first, then no one would believe what you said. I felt the world spinning around me. So Julian had known about my background all along. Not only did he know, but he was also using this secret. Then why did you cooperate with him? I clenched my fists. Because of Zoe. Serena said through her tears. She found me and said this was her father's plan. If I didn't cooperate, she would tell everyone what my family had done back then. My daughter. What else did she say? She said you are such a hypocritical mother. Clearly wealthy and powerful, yet you never investigate your own background. She said you don't deserve to have this wealth, because you don't even dare to take revenge. My anger ignited in an instant. My 16-year-old daughter had evaluated me like this. That so-called affair. It was an act. Serena lowered her head. Julian said that the affair would make a woman completely collapse. He wanted me to play along and make you think he betrayed you. That way you would make impulsive decisions out of anger. I laughed. I laughed so much that Serena looked up at me. Why did he want to do this? Because he was scared. Serena bit her lip. He said if you found out the truth, his end would be miserable. It's better to strike first. What truth? Serena shook her head. I don't know. I only know that the car accident back then wasn't an accident. I stood up, trembling all over. Not an accident. Then how did my parents die? Serena, the last question. I stared into her eyes. Do you truly love Julian, or are you just completing a task? Serena's gaze flickered. At first it was a task, but later I found that I really fell in love with him. My heart turned cold. So she was willing to cooperate with this plan not just for money, but also for love. She wanted my husband. Wanted everything of mine. Then why are you telling me this now? Serena lifted her head, a desperate resolve in her eyes. Because I found out that he never loved me. I was just a pawn to him. Just like you. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Serena's cries. But I no longer cared. Now I knew the truth. My husband, my daughter, even my rival, were all in the same camp. They wanted me to go mad. To voluntarily give up everything. To never uncover the truth of that year. Fine, I will send you all to hell together. I stepped into the house, and Julian's deep sigh echoed from the living room. He sat on the sofa, his hands clasped behind his head, looking utterly tormented. Hearing the footsteps, he lifted his head, his eyes filled with guilt and regret. Arya, you're back. He stood up, his voice trembling. I know you don't want to see me, but please give me a chance to explain. I stood at the entrance, quietly watching his performance. I was really just confused for a moment. He approached me. That woman, Serena, took advantage of my kindness. She said she was in trouble, and I just wanted to help her. I never expected her to misunderstand my intentions. Kindness? I nearly laughed out loud. I've already made it clear to her, and I will never see her again. Julian reached out to grab my hand, but I stepped away. Arya, we can't destroy what we have because of an outsider. Think about Zoe. She still needs a complete family. Hearing my daughter's name stabbed at my heart. But I quickly recalled Serena's words. Zoe was also involved in this plan. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, was actually standing with them. You're right. I finally spoke. Zoe does indeed need a complete family. Surprise flickered in Julian's eyes. Are you willing to forgive me? But with conditions. I turned towards the living room. The matter with the Davis family must be handled by you personally. What do you mean? Serena's father took money he shouldn't have back then, and is now meddling in our marriage. I sat down and said calmly, such a person is a disaster to keep around. You say you want to cut ties with Serena, then do it completely. Julian's gaze flickered a few times. Arya, you want me to. I don't care what methods you use. I interrupted him. In any case, I don't want to hear anything about the Davis family anymore. If you can't do that, we really have no need to continue. After a few seconds of silence, Julian nodded. Okay, I promise you. But you have to guarantee that after this matter is dealt with, we can start over. Of course. I gave him a gentle smile. Julian immediately took out his phone and dialed a number. Mr. Davis? It's me, Julian. His tone turned cold and hard. I think we need to meet to clarify some matters. A hurried voice came from the other end. I couldn't make out the content, but I could sense the other party's tension. Tomorrow at 8, Old Place. Julian hung up the phone and turned to me. Is that okay? I nodded, but my heart was coldly laughing. Old Place. It seemed they had been familiar with it for a long time. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. Mr. Julian is meeting with the Davis family? The lawyer clearly sensed something. Ma'am, this could be an opportunity. I need you to contact the police. My voice was soft. I suspect this meeting won't be that simple. Are you saying there are unspeakable secrets between them? Since they want to completely resolve this trouble with the Davis family, Let's see how they plan to solve it. The lawyer was silent for a moment. I understand. I will arrange it. In the evening, Julian changed into a black outfit, and even leaned in to kiss my cheek before leaving. Wait for me to come back, he said. I smiled and nodded, watching him leave. But my heart had completely died. This man, the man I once loved deeply, was now going to handle something that might be more than just a trouble. It could very well be a life. I remembered Serena's words, crying. The car accident back then was not an accident. If Serena's father really knew something, what extremes would Julian go to keep the secret? I didn't dare to think further. But one thing I was very clear about. After tonight, the truth would finally surface. I picked up my phone and sent the lawyer a message. Start taking action. I stood up, put on my coat, and prepared to witness the eventual outcome of this game with my own eyes. I stepped into the private room, wearing 12-centimeter high heels, and pushed the door open. At the dining table, Julian was having a secret meeting with the Davis father and daughter. A thick stack of documents lay on the table, and Mr. Davis was signing. Seeing me, the three of them turned pale. Police! Don't move! Four police officers poured in from behind me, closely followed by a lawyer. Mr. Davis dropped the pen he was holding onto the floor, and Serena sat down in her chair, terrified. Only Julian remained calm, looking at me. What's going on, Arya? He stood up. I sneered, still pretending. Embezzlement of nearly 20 million, Mr. Davis. You can't escape this. The lawyer placed the evidence on the table. Bank statements, transfer records, falsified accounts, conclusive evidence. Mr. Davis's face turned ashen. I admit I did embezzle company funds back then. But Mr. Julian was involved too. He was the mastermind. I turned to Julian, waiting for his reaction. He slowly shook his head. Mr. Davis, I'm disappointed to hear you say that. I was just a newly graduated student back then. How could I have been involved in such matters? Mr. Davis grew anxious. Julian, you can't do this. You were the one who told me that Arya's parents had died, and that nobody would pursue it. When did I ever say that? Julian looked innocent. Don't slander me. Serena panicked as well. Julian, you can't leave us like this. About what happened back then. What happened back then? Julian interrupted. Serena, your father broke the law. What does that have to do with me? I watched their performance, my anger turning into despair. Even at this stage, Julian could still extricate himself completely. Arya, I understand now. Julian walked towards me. You want to take the opportunity to divorce, so you deliberately framed me. You would use such means? His voice choked. I have been sincere to you, and you've actually colluded with outsiders to harm me. The police looked at me, their expressions starting to doubt. My hands were trembling. Could it really end like this? Would he remain unpunished? At that moment, the private room door was pushed open again. An elderly man with graying hair walked in. Julian's expression changed instantly when he saw him. Teacher? What are you doing here? The old man surveyed the scene and sighed. Julian, I didn't expect you to come to this. This is... A police officer asked. I'm a retired professor from the College of Economics, Julian's mentor. The old man took a document out of his briefcase. This is his thesis. I took the thesis and saw the cover, my blood running cold. Research on the flow of assets following the unexpected bankruptcy of Group G. Group G. That was my parents' company. Teacher. Julian's face turned pale. The old professor shook his head. I found it strange when you chose this topic back then. How could a student be so interested in a company that just went bankrupt? I opened the thesis, which detailed the analysis of the flow of funds leading up to Group G's bankruptcy, even recording the exact time of my parents' deaths. When did you start investigating my parents? My voice trembled. Julian fell silent. The old professor answered for him. The thesis was written in senior year, indicating that you had been investigating for at least a year prior. And you met in junior year, right? In that moment, all the fragments of memory pieced together. Our first encounter, his active pursuit, his gentle care. It was all a lie. From the moment he saw me, he had a purpose. No, Arya, let me explain. Julian reached out to grab me. I stepped back and avoided him. Explain what? Explain how you approached me? Explain how you deceived me into loving you. Tears slid down my cheeks, but I smiled. Julian, you're really something. Over a decade of marriage, and it was all a scam. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. I turned to the Davis father and daughter. So you were also pawns. He used you to get close to me, then used me to eliminate you. Serena finally understood something, her eyes filled with fear. The police stepped forward and put handcuffs on Julian. Suspected of involvement in major economic crimes, come with us. Arya, help me. I really love you. Julian shouted as he was dragged away. I stood there, watching as this man was taken away. Love me? He was not even worthy of speaking my name. As I watched Julian being taken away in the police car, I thought my heart would feel relief. But it didn't. Instead, it felt terrifyingly hollow. Over a decade of marriage, and it turned out to be nothing but a ruse. Arya, are you okay? The lawyer walked over to me. I shook my head. I want to be alone for a while. The lawyer nodded in understanding and left with the others. I was the only one left in the private room. I sat in the chair Julian had just occupied, the table strewn with the evidence. Bank statements, transfer records, and that thesis. Research on the flow of assets after the unexpected bankruptcy of Group G. I opened the thesis again. Every single number, every analysis, was terrifyingly precise. Even the exact time of my parents' accident was recorded down to the slightest detail. It turned out he was even colder than I had imagined. What was he doing when my parents died? Calculating how to get close to me? Researching how to deceive my trust? I wanted to cry, but my tears had already run dry. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Miss Arya, I am Julian's lawyer. A middle-aged man's voice came through the phone. I would like to talk to you about Mr. Julian's case. I sneered coldly. What's there to talk about? Mr. Julian is willing to confess to all his crimes, on the condition that you plead for him and ask the judge for leniency. Leniency? My voice started to tremble. My parents' lives mean so little to him. Miss Arya, the dead cannot be brought back to life. Pursuing revenge will benefit no one. I hung up the phone directly. No benefit. It was no benefit to me, it would instead benefit them. The next day, I went to the detention center. Through the glass, I saw Julian. He had lost a lot of weight, and his eyes were filled with despair. Arya, you finally came to see me. His voice came through the intercom. I said nothing, just quietly looked at him. Arya, I realize I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. He began to cry. I did purposely get close to you back then, but later, I really fell in love with you. Really fell in love with me? I finally spoke. So you just sat there watching Mr. Davis embezzle my parents' money? Watching me work tirelessly for Serena's medical bills these past years? I wanted to tell you the truth, but I was afraid you would hate me. Don't I hate you now? He was stunned. Julian, do you know how I've been living these years? My voice was very calm. Every day I think, why did my parents get in an accident? Why did the driver flee? Why did a good company go bankrupt? Every night I dream of them. I dream of them asking me why I haven't avenged them. Now I know. The murderer was sleeping right next to me. Julian's face went pale. Arya, I didn't kill your parents. You didn't kill them, but you were privy to it. You watched coldly as the real murderer escaped legal consequences. I stood up. In my heart, you are the murderer. I turned to leave. Arya, he pounded against the glass. I'm willing to give you all my assets. I'm willing to pay with my life. Please forgive me. I stopped and looked back at him. Julian, do you think I need that little bit of money from you? The inheritance my parents left me is enough for me to live on for several lifetimes. As for your life? I laughed. How much do you think your life is worth? He fell into complete despair. As I walked out of the detention center, I received a phone call. Miss Arya, Mr. Davis has confessed to everything, including the accident from years ago. I tightened my grip on the phone. What do you mean? The driver did not accidentally kill your parents. He was bribed by Mr. Davis. With a thunderous crash, my world completely collapsed. It turned out it was not an accident. It was murder. Deliberate murder. I leaned against the wall, slowly sliding down to the ground. Passers-by cast strange glances at me, but I felt nothing anymore. My parents were intentionally killed by someone. And the murderer was someone I had supported for over a decade. I paid for the murderer's daughter's medical expenses, worried about the murderer's family, and even thought of helping them in their times of trouble. What a ridiculous daughter I am. My phone rang again. Ms. Arya, there's one more thing. Go on. Mr. Davis confessed that Julian indeed participated in the planning back then. The specific time and location of the accident were all provided by Julian. I closed my eyes. It turned out he was not just privy to it. He was an accomplice.